There is a specific oily kind of dread that comes from being trapped in a house with someone who doesn't know who they are, but knows exactly what they want to do to you. Usually in horror, we treat dementia as a tragedy, a slow fading of the light. Martín Mauregui's Crazy Old Lady looks at that fading light and decides to smash the bulb and use the glass as a weapon. This isn't just a thriller, it's a 90-minute exercise in pure, unadulterated nihilism that asks how much balls a movie can have before it simply loses its soul. The film looks like $1 million and features a powerhouse performance from a legend of Spanish cinema, but it's also the kind of experience that makes you want to take a very long, very hot shower the moment the credits roll. Visually, Mauregui has learned all the right lessons from his mentor, J.A. Bayona. The film is drenched in a sickly, jaundiced atmosphere. The house is a character itself, cluttered, decaying, and feeling as though the walls are sweating. It's prestige horror in its Sunday best, carrying the DNA of the orphanage but stripped of any Spielbergian heart. It's cold, it's clinical, and it is relentlessly mean-spirited. And if you're looking for a fun Friday night popcorn flick, you're in the wrong neighborhood. This is a film that wants to hurt your feelings. Today we're breaking down whether Crazy Old Lady is a daring subversion of the Hagsploitation subgenre, or if it's just a well-shot piece of misery porn that confuses shock value for depth. I'll give you the setup and the critique, but as always, no spoilers. We aren't touching the third act, though I have plenty to say about the feeling it leaves you with. By the end, you'll know if this is a dark masterpiece you missed or a descent into the abyss that you're better off skipping. The setup is deceptively simple. We follow Pedro, played with the frantic, grounded energy by Daniel Hendler. Pedro is the kind of guy who can't say no, even to an ex-girlfriend. When she asks him to do a wellness check on her mother and keep an eye on her while she's out of town, he treats it like a mundane chore. Enter the legendary Carmen Maura as Alicia, the mother. At first, it's the standard heartbreaking portrait of cognitive decline. Alicia is confused, she's fragile, and she's losing her grip on the now. But as the sun sets and the doors lock, the wires in Alicia's mind start to cross in a way that is far more predatory than pathetic. She stops seeing Pedro as a helpful stranger and starts seeing him as Caesar, a man from her past during Argentina's dirty war. The tragedy of her condition becomes the engine of Pedro's survival. He isn't just dealing with a senile woman, he's trapped in a house with a woman who has reread her own history and decided that Pedro is a ghost who needs to be exorcised with extreme prejudice. And when a dog dies early in the film, and I'm warning you now, it's a rough one. It serves as the mission statement for the rest of the runtime. Nothing is safe, and no one is coming to help. Before we get into the meat of the critique, there's a bit of lore you need to know, because the DNA of this film is kind of fascinating. It actually exists because of a blood pact, or at least a professional one. You might know J.A. Bayona from Society of the Snow or The Orphanage. Well, years ago, Guillermo del Toro produced Bayona's first film, and the deal was simple. Eventually, you have to pay it forward and sponsor a new director. Bayona chose Martín Mauregui, who was a dialogue writer on Society of the Snow. And man, did he pick a hell of a project for a debut. But the buzz isn't just about the mentorship. The internet has been eating itself alive whether this film is Hagsploitation. That's that lovely 60s subgenre where older women are depicted as grotesque, unstable villains. And critics are calling it gross. Mauregui is pushing back, saying he didn't want Alicia to be a victim of her dementia, but a victimizer. He wanted her to have agency, even if the agency is fueled by a broken mind and a violent past. Plus, there's this heavy as lead subtext about Argentina's dirty war and the disappeared people of that era. It teases this deep social commentary, but whether it actually says anything or just uses it as a red herring is where the debate gets really spicy. But let's look at the film on its own terms. From a technical standpoint, this movie is a knockout. The cinematography is suffocating in the best possible way. Every frame feels like it's closing in on Pedro, and the sound design, it's visceral. You hear every wet floorboard, every labored breath, and unfortunately, every sickening crunch. The gore isn't a fun slasher gore, it's mean. When the dog dies early on, it sets the tone of the complete nihilism. This is going to make you feel oily. It certainly made me feel gross, if I'm going to be honest. The pacing is where the wheels start to wobble. The first act is a masterclass in tension, but the middle of the movie, it kind of loses me a little bit. It starts to feel like it's spinning its wheels in the misery. It becomes a bit of a repetitive cat and mouse game where the cat is an elderly woman and the mouse is a guy who's tied to a chair. It drags because it's so relentlessly bleak that you eventually become numb to the stakes. Carmen Maura is the reason to watch this. She is absolutely chilling. She manages to pivot from a confused grandmother to a cold-blooded hunter with just the look in her eyes. It's a powerhouse performance in a movie that frankly might not deserve it. Now, I have to be honest with you, there is some truly wild nihilistic stuff that happens in the third act that I'm not going to touch on here without ruining the experience or your appetite. It's ballsy, I'll give it that, but it goes to some incredibly dark places that left me feeling more annoyed than shocked. Because there's so much to unpack with the finale and the themes of the movie, maybe check out my ending explained. So who is Crazy Old Lady for? If you're a diehard for the cult aesthetic, meaning that you live for boutique Blu-ray releases of the darkest, most uncompromising international horror, you might find something here to admire in the craft. But for the casual viewer, this is a tough sell. I usually like dark movies, I grew up on this stuff. But there's a line between dark and complete nihilism, and this movie kind of leaps over it and never really looks back. It looks great, and the acting is top tier, but the story, it's just too mean-spirited for its own good. It's a technical achievement that forgot to bring the heart to the set, and I blame me for getting older and kind of being a little bit more sensitive to this completely nihilistic story like this. So my rating for Crazy Old Lady is a 2 out of 5. It's got the balls, but it lacks the soul. But if you want me to dive more into Crazy Old Lady, check out my ending explained by my head. And YouTube thinks you'll like the other video by my head.